Hey everybody, Leafy Concern here. So I told everybody a couple of days ago about how I got this collection of essays by George Orwell. Well, I've started actually reading it, and I'm actually part of the way through Such Were the Joys, and I must say I'm enjoying it more than I even thought I would. And I want to keep you posted the more of this I read. More precisely, I've gotten this far. I've gotten to the end of this second section. All through my boyhood, I had a profound conviction that I was no good, that I was wasting my time, wrecking my talents, behaving with monstrous folly and wickedness and ingratitude. And all this, it seemed, was inescapable, because I lived among laws which were absolute, like the law of gravity, but which it was not possible for me to keep. And then there's section 3, and they all start in this nice muted way. Well, I bring up this book again today because I've just made another couple of purchases at the book deal of books that are similar to it in beauty. And so, just to keep you all updated, so you have your finger on the pulse. We've got 3 new books here in my collection, all kind of with slightly different purposes. Of course, the book deal had 3 copies of The Secret Agent. One of them had 75 cents as the price, another with $1.25, another with $1.45. So this cover must have been reprinted for a good long while, because that seems like a pretty steep, that's a lot of inflation to have happen. You know, it needed time to happen. I chose this one because it had the lowest one and seemed like it would be the earliest. I think that was my logic for it. And also the yellow doesn't look, on some of them where the yellow is very saturated, it has this kind of like electric lemon effect, which I'm not as much of a fan of. Also, I liked that the white on here is more of like a kind of like, weathered off-white kind of deal. You can see down here at the bottom where the dryness of the glue has a kind of baked quality. It's just looking really good throughout. I don't know if at the time this book was made, Edward Gorey wasn't really like, well known or whatever, but he's not listed on the inside as having done it, and there's nothing on the back about him either. But that's the back, a nice simple back like that. And I've made a video about my Penguin Poets books. I found another in that vein, and paperbacks there just like $1.99, so it was kind of which is actually the price that it was originally, cost. I was happy to see Maryland in here. Baltimore, Maryland. Wow, that's so cool. Shout out to Baltimore, Maryland. Yeah, so I paid as much for this book as people paid for it in 1962. It has 2 little creases on the spine, which I think are kind of actually nicely placed. It's really nice and flexible. And it's the same design as I think my book of German verse, except a different color. It's a really pleasant blue. I'm really excited about reading Bloch in here and the Andrei Bely poems. There's some Akhmatova ones here, and I wonder if those aren't any of the ones I have. There's Mandelstam ones, and I wonder if I don't have those. Pasternak, of course. I also have really enjoyed these poets in the past. I really love the way these editions, I may have said this in my other video, but I love the way these editions present their translations in the form of prose poems. This was the guy whose name I was really, really mispronouncing. Also, I can't read Cyrillic, by the way. So I'm really just going to be like glancing and then really kind of drinking deep from these prose poems at the bottom. But I love that they present them as prose poems because, I like writing things in this style. Like I have like a few ideas for poems coming up where like I do want stanzas to more or less look like this in terms of the relationship between lines, sentences, and stanzas. If you can imagine more of like a stanza breakiness between these, maybe. And lastly, I found this book, The Man Without Qualities, which, I mean, if name drops Proust and Mann on here, but basically, I've heard about this book for a long time. When I was in college, one of my good friends, who has actually been in a couple of Leafy Concern videos, was reading this book a lot in that, vintage edition that's like really big. And this contains a decent part of what was in that. Volume 1, a sort of introduction, and the like of it now happens 1. So it's like, there's a first book. I'm interested in these chapter headings. And then there's also, it's more flexible than I'm making it out to be. Like, it actually opens up kind of nice. And then second book, part 1. So I think that's basically all this contains. But that's already quite a lot. Like, you know, that's enough to read to really, I think, get a good idea of what's in this. The translation, what is it? Ithne Wilkins, Wilkins, and Ernst Kaiser. Sorry, I don't really know how to say that, but a Paragree book, which is a press I don't really feel like I have much from. But this isn't a particularly beautiful copy. It just seemed like a good way to cheaply get a lot of this book and finally read it. And anyway, not to get too, you know, acquisition or haul heavy with my channel or anything, but I just wanted to keep y'all updated and, you know, turn the camera on the beautiful books as soon as possible and let you take a gander. More on the Orwell as I get farther into it, but I've been really relating to it. It's really interesting how people who are renowned for their clear prose really make you feel like you're in the middle of a universal kind of fable. And the story of this school life really could be a model for anybody trying to write the story of something where they're really earnestly trying to understand how bad it actually was, you know? Sometimes you need to really search your memory to be like, yeah, that really was, you know, terrible. And then also in the course of recovering those memories, I think you can also kind of, if you have the, you know, if you have a bit of what Orwell has, you can also recover such delightful details as like some of the physical details of what the employees of this school were like. Yeah, these sketches. A certain Mr. Bachelor, a likable, very hairy man who wore shaggy suits and lived in a typical bachelor's den, book-lined walls, overwhelming stench of tobacco, somewhere in the town. I mean, it kind of reminds me of like you know, his knack for making these sketches of how people look. And I remember these happening in 1984. I mean, but they're really good in Such Were the Joys. I think I might enjoy them much better there than I do in 1984, which is advertised here. Like, they remind me of Charles Dickens, and that makes me really want to not only read Dickens, but read his essay on Dickens, which is in here, which maybe I'll get to sometime soon. That's it for now. I wish everybody a happy morning, you know, afternoon, evening, night of reading. And take care, y'all.